All right, in this lesson here, what we're going to do is basically just take a tour around HumanIK. All right, so at this point right now, what you're looking at is just a body generator that's been added into the scene. And you already saw in the last lesson that I can simply come over here and press the Initialize IK button, bink, to go ahead and activate HumanIK, and I now have a control rig on the character. Doesn't really look like it at first. I mean, right now we've got an icon down here at the bottom.
And that's it.
And that's really the only new thing, with the exception of our box went away right here that we used to get over there on the Modify panel so that we could adjust all of the different links, etc., for our body generator, which we don't need that now because now we've got FKIK running throughout all of our skeletal bones. Okay, so what do we have? Well, first thing we have is the motion panel being active. What, you may be thinking? Well, if you remember when we started out, first of all, in creating the body generator, we started over here from the Create panel, and once we created the skeleton, it automatically jumped us over here to the Modify panel. Well, the moment that we hit Initialize IK, it automatically jumps you over here to the Motion panel. And from the Motion panel, with the HumanIK selected down here, you will see all of the various parameters available. Now, this isn't the only place where we'll be seeing parameters, and I'll get into that in just a minute. Now, before I start walking through some of these parameters, please let me go ahead and explain that I'm not going to get into every single one in detail for the simple fact that if I did, then that would be the end of this VTM without any other lessons.
That's right.
So to help keep these files relatively small for download, I'm going to be breaking this up so that in some of the upcoming lessons, like the one after this, we'll be talking about how to define your own skeleton, and then we've got one where we'll be looking at doing animation with the rig, we'll be looking at how we can do animation with poses, etc. That's when we'll start really breaking down all of the different parameters that's available with HumanIK. But right now the idea is just a tour around HumanIK and get you comfortable with what is there. Okay, so here we are now over here on the Motion panel. And coming down here up under the HumanIK parameters, we've got three large buttons. And this is really the heart of HumanIK.
This is where it all happens.
This is where it all happens. There's basically three different modes that you can be in, if you want to look at it that way. The first one is Define. And what Define will allow you to do is characterize your skeleton. Well, for those of you that are coming from the world of Motion Builder, characterize here is the same thing as over in Motion Builder. But for those of you that have never worked with Motion Builder before, what characterize means is basically HumanIK is going to understand your skeleton. It's going to understand all the bones. It's going to understand the upper bone for the arm, the lower bone for the arm, or the legs. It's going to understand the number of spines, etc. The whole idea of using this rig, or one of the ideas anyways, is to be able to bring in animated characters that were perhaps done over in Motion Builder or that have been animated through motion capture, and then retarget that animation so those things become a source of animation for our current character. Okay, well, in doing that, they may have more bones. They may have less bones. They may be larger or smaller. There's so many different endless combinations, if you will. Well, as long as this guy is characterized and the other character is characterized, HumanIK understands the difference between the two and is able to properly plot the animation so that the animation will look the same. Now, I know that was quite a mouthful, Joel,
that makes sense.
But it does make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. So characterize is very important. In this case, since we use Body Generator and we just hit the Initialize IK button a minute ago, it has been automatically characterized for us. Now, we'll be coming back into the Define section here in this next lesson where we'll take our own skeleton and actually characterize it ourselves, where we'll go through and we will tell HumanIK, look, this is the hips, and we'll pick it. This is the legs. This is, etc.,
so which bones go where?
Exactly. And then we've got reference, left floor, right floor. We've got some other things that we can deal with as well. And we've got some things down here at the bottom up under HumanIK Display, but you'll notice that this little rollout is going to kind of follow us around as we go through these three major modes. So we'll talk about it in just a minute. So the first of the three modes, Define. Basically, it's all about characterization. The next mode is for retargeting. So let's go ahead and click on this. This is where we can bring in another character that's been animated by hand or perhaps by motion capture or whichever method, or even a biped through Character Studio. But as long as HumanIK can understand it. Like if it's mocapped, if it's been actually characterized, the two can talk together. I can come down here up under source, and I will be able to find that character in here and have that character drive my character here. And this is great stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Really powerful stuff. And I can do the same with the biped as well. And then there is a series of options down here available in regards to reach, on how far we're going to reach with hands, feet, or chest for matching the poses of the original character. And we'll get into those a little bit later when we talk about retargeting in that specific lesson. Okay, so moving on over to the third and probably most used section of HumanIK, we get the FK-IK solver mode. When we go into this mode, some of you out there may immediately go, hey, there's that character controls window again from over in Motion Builder.
A lot like Motion Builder.
And not only that, take a look over here. Our character just came to life with all of these little red boxes, and what is all that? Well, these are our effectors, okay? This is basically like end effectors or our IK effectors, where we can grab them and move them around, and you're going to see that we'll actually get motion occur. As a matter of fact, let's do it. I'm going to come over here to my character, and I'll select on my left wrist, which I just managed to click and drag. That was a little strange. Let's move that back down. Okay, so now that I've clicked on it, you'll notice that it is highlighted green. Also, you'll notice that my box is selected over here. Let's go ahead and come up here and grab my move tool, and I move this around, and it's like I've got regular inverse kinematics. But this rig goes so much beyond that. Watch this. Watch what happens when I reach its extreme pose. Okay? So right there, normally with other applications, you've reached the extremities of the IK, and the bones are basically going to lock. You can't go any further. But no, not here, not with this rig. As I continue to drag, look at that. It's the whole IK solution is being affected and applied from the other arm, the spine, the legs. Let me just pick that up off the ground and stand back up.
Wow, that's impressive.
And so as I stand back up, watch this. It'll snap right back into where it was at, and then this arm's free to move around as well.
That's too cool.
And I have full control over this as well. When we get into the keyframing section, we'll start talking about how we can affect how far up we're going to travel in the effect as we start moving these effectors around. But let's go ahead and go back to this guy over here for a second. Let's go ahead and move this down and watch this. I can just use this to ease selection. So I'll click right there. You notice that again, it's got the green band around it indicating that it's selected. And I can come in here and I can just make more adjustments. So easy. Well, while we're talking about that, let's go ahead and do a couple of undos just to snap that back out. You'll notice these little P's and the PRs that are going in there. These are pinnings, or pinnings that have been applied to effectors. That's a better way to put it. If we look down here, we've got a pinning group section. And inside this area, we've got a release, a P checkbox, and an R checkbox. And what these indicate is which effectors basically have been pinned. So right now, the left wrist effector has simply been position pinned. P is for position, R is for rotation. Meaning that if I come in here and I grab my center and I start pulling the hips down like such, you'll notice that both my left and my right arms are staying in place. Okay?
So they're pinned to that
location. They
are
pinned to that location. Now they will, as I continue to pull down, they will start to pull down as you see there. Of course, you're not going to want to actually put your character in that type of a position. That
usually not.
Yeah, it could be quite painful unless it was some sort of accident or something that the character had in the animation.
Yeah.
You get the point. So what happens with the feet? Well, look at the feet. They're also pinned, but they're pinned both position and rotation. So if I come over here and move forward, watch what's going to happen. They're going to try to maintain their rotation position. Notice how they're not rotating those boxes. These boxes down here are staying nice and straight. See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But while these guys up here are rotating all over the place as I start moving this back. See how they're twisting and all? So if I was to come over here and grab one of these effectors and say, look, I want to pin it, both position and rotation, come back over here and grab at my hips, and let's just move down and make it easier to see. You'll notice that my right arm now looks completely different because it's not twisting and trying to pull down. It's staying straight. And the left arm, well, it's still twisting. So pinning can be very, very handy. So we can just come back over here, and I'll go ahead and take out rotation. We'll just put it back over there to the regular positional pin. Release, what release will allow me to do, if I come in here now and release it and grab this guy and start moving him around, look at that. Basically, it has temporarily disabled all of my pinnings that have been placed on specific effectors. So just right-click to cancel that. I'll turn release back off, and you'll notice that now everything has been pinned again. Another nice thing to know about when working inside this window over here is the fact that I can hold the control key down and I can select multiple things at one time. So now you can see with the green banding, I've actually got my left, right, and hips selected. Left, right, arm, that is. So now if I move the upper part, all three of those effectors move, causing the whole upper part of the body to move along without any actual solving being done on the IK solution. But the feet are going to stay nice and flush.
So you can move it all in one time.
So if I wanted to, yeah, I could simply come down here and grab the bottom two. I mean, but if you're going to do all this, it might be a little faster just to simply release it. But again, you are absolutely right. If I wanted to now, I could just come through here and, hey, start moving them around. You can see the good old floor contacts are working
cool.
just great. So anyways, good thing to know about this. But while talking about these effectors, let's go ahead and jump down just a little bit into this effector group section, okay, in the FKIK parameters rollout here, solver rollout. And these guys are pretty handy. You can go through here and you can change the color of them. Right now you notice that they're all a red color. We can change the size. And right now I've got the ones selected that are probably going to be used most of the time. So if I wanted to, watch this. I can make those a little bit bigger for easy selection because I'm not limited to doing my selections from inside here. So I've made them a little bit bigger. Maybe I want to throw some crosses in them too, so now they're really getting easy to select. And let's see, if I wanted them to draw on top at all time, I could do that. And you can see now how it's drawing in front of the bone, and it'll do that at all times. But we'll turn that off because that, you know, for some people might look a little strange.
Sure.
But let's go ahead and come in here and change our color. Maybe we'll go with some sort of let's pick on maybe a real dark type blue. Go ahead and close that out. So now let's go ahead and deselect and look at that. And now if I select, hey, look at that. Select it over here. It's just so easy to do.
So much easier to select.
So, and if I wanted to with all of the other ones, I could even go in there. Let's just pick on the arms for a minute. Let's say I'm not going to be grabbing these inside my viewport for any reason, so I'll grab these right here. And if I wanted to, I could come down here and we could simply hide those guys just to clean things up inside our viewport. Cleaning up is always good.
Oh, it's always a good thing.
It helps establish a cleaner workflow. So let's
it
go
doesn't
ahead
make things
and
so complicated.
that's right. So let's go ahead and bring them back for now. Just wanted you guys to be aware of this. So this is definitely something that's good. FKIK blending, this is something that we'll be talking about when we get into the animation section, but it's just basically the blending between position and rotation, because right now we have both FK and IK available in this guy. And that's probably enough to talk about for the moment. But we'll be coming back to the blending section. Cruising down a little bit lower, we've got a keyframing section. We'll be talking about this when we get into keyframe animation with our control rig over here. It's broke down real easy, though. Basically, we can say what we're going to animate. Is it going to be full body? In other words, all these effectors are going to get keyframes. Is it going to be body parts where it would be like, say, just an arm or just a leg? Is it going to be selection? And that's special. That's when we start kind of getting into working with FK. And then down here we get a little bit lower. We get into paste, match, and this drop down here. This is where we start getting into poses in the clipboard, where we can start recording some of the poses that our character's in and then recalling those, and we can mirror them, and it's really cool for roughing in animation. And we'll come back to this again in its own lesson a little bit later on poses. Going down a little bit further, I told you we'd come back to this HumanIK display rollout. Was I kidding?
Yeah.
No. This guy's going to follow you around as you go through all three of your major modes in HumanIK that we talked about up here. And they're real easy. Basically what they control is if we wanted to freeze our effectors so that we cannot select them. If I come in right now, deselect everything, I can't select it.
That can come
If I select one of these, all I get is my bones. How do I get back to everything? Simple. Come down here, select the HumanIK icon again, and you're back in there. But if you don't want to select these guys in your scene, do that. Well, how would you go about selecting them then? Simple. Use your pinning. Look at that. He's frozen, but I've still managed to select him, and I can still move him around. Okay? You just cannot select them in your viewport, as you see there. That was actually bones that got selected. Let's go ahead and come back down here. We also have the ability to hide all of our effectors if we want to clean everything up quickly. And then we get over here with some control over bones. If we wanted to freeze our bones or hide our bones. Let's start with hide, and then we're going to work our way back up, because freeze will do something that I'm going to show you how we can get around up above. Hide, well, I bet you never saw that one coming, Joel, did you?
No, I didn't.
Just hit all the bones. Now you can see our FK yellow stick frame, or stick figure, really well, which is pretty neat, because that does bring us quickly down here into the show ghost grouping section right here, where basically there's several different skeletons, these little stick figure skeletons that we're going to be seeing. We've got a blue one, we've got a green one, and we've got the yellow FK one. And the other two we're going to start seeing when we start working with the clipboard. Okay, but basically these will just control if we're going to see the two clipboard ghosts, if we're going to see the FK ghost, or if we want to turn the FK ghost off. And finally, foot contacts down here on the bottom, which we're about to talk more about in a second. You can see the red rectangular square there and the blue one over here, if we want to see those or not see those. Really simple stuff. So now let's start working our way back up. Well, all right. While I'm down here, let's just cover this one last thing. Yeah, the HumanIK gizmo size. Larger, smaller. Okay, everybody passed that one. All right, so here...
That's too complicated.
Okay, bingo, let's try this again. Come back down here, a little larger, a little bit smaller. Oh, by the way, if everybody's already figured out, when Joel gives me super intelligent questions, I call him bingo. So moving on back up into the bone section right here. Let's go ahead and unhide these. And what I want to do now is freeze them. Okay, so now I have frozen my geometry, and if you remember, when we were back over in the section where we took a body generator and actually made it fit inside our character's mesh, the very first thing we did was what? We froze him. But before freezing him, one of the things we did is we turned off Show Frozen in Gray because we didn't want to see our mesh become solid gray. We wanted to keep that transparency, that X-ray option turned on, the see-through checkbox that we checked. Well, in this case, I'm telling it that I want to freeze the bones so that I cannot select them, as you see here, but they're showing in gray, and some of us like to work with skeletons where we can see the difference between our left and our right because of color coding, the green and the blue that you saw a second ago on all the different bones. Well, we can get around this gray thing real simple. If we scroll back up here to the top, over here, inside our HumanIK parameters rollout, we've got 3 icons, and that's pretty much all we haven't talked about. The first icon over here gives us advanced parameters. We'll come into that one in just a second. The second one, which we actually need at the moment, is called options, and it really just gives you just like 3 different options. Show frozen bones in gray. Wow, imagine that. And then we have auto hide effectors when switching modes, and finally clipboard ghost color, and we'll talk about this one a little bit later. So, show frozen bones in gray. No. Okay.
Now the color comes back.
The color comes back. Can I select them? No. Notice how the icon's not changed. I move my icon up here, it changes. The mouse icon, that is. Back down here, the mouse pointer is still just a regular arrow. So, definitely good to know. Now, one thing when switching modes, and this is going to tie back into our options right here, and that is when I switch over here into my retargeting mode, what just happened? You recognize what just happened?
No, I'm not quite sure.
Look at all of my effectors. Where'd they go?
Oh,
we lost all of our effectors. We come back over here, they suddenly magically reappear. Well, if we come back into options real quick, another thing that we have is the auto hide effectors when switching modes. Well, let's turn that off, tell it okay, switch modes to retargeting, and we still have them visible.
So no matter which mode you're in, you can always see the effectors.
You got it. I can still select. I can move them around. I can come back over here into our defining mode. Everything's still good.
That can be very handy.
Absolutely. So that pretty much covers what we want to talk about in options. Info, of course, this is just an about box giving us, all of the developers, etc. Let's go ahead and get out of that. And finally, advanced parameters. Advanced parameters offers the ability to tweak every single thing in regards to HumanIK. And a lot of these things are found throughout the different rollouts over here in the command panel. But you'll notice they're broke up into different sections: general, reach, pull, resist, offset, stiffness, modifiers, which breaks up even further into kill pitch, and roll extraction. This is a bunch of different things, and we're not going to get into covering all of these because we just don't have the time for it. This is something definitely I would encourage you guys to get out there and start working with. But you're going to find that a lot of these things are going to start making sense when we start talking about keyframing and blending and the reach capabilities for retargeting, etc. But there is one thing in here, just so that we do talk about something that I want to mention, and that is, let's come down here to floor contact. Right now, we are contacting with the floor. As a matter of fact, if I come over here, and let's just grab these guys real quick, just for demonstration purposes, and pull them up, pull them down, smack. We just came into contact with the floor.
Yeah, he's definitely hitting the floor.
So now that we're sure of that, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And what's hitting the floor and stopping is these rectangular red and blue shapes. Perhaps I need to adjust them, and maybe my bottom of my foot really is down here at the bottom of this bone. So I wouldn't want my foot going through the floor like this. Well, I could simply come over here, go back into advanced parameters, and then from in advanced parameters, there's so many different ways we can control these rectangles down here for the contact with floor. But let's just come over here to foot bottom to ankle. All I need to do is click over here in the values section, and then watch this. up that information. I can lower it, I can raise it. While I basically pull it up like this, it's not going to have any effect because the floor is not that high right now. But if I start pushing this down, it can't go through the floor, or the grid in this particular case. So it's going to start pushing the IK up, which is what's generating a solution and causing the legs to move. So we just push this guy up. Now we can just kind of, eyeball it over here so that our foot's on top of the grid like such, and all is good.
Very cool.
And I mean, there's a lot of different things. Look at that. The back of the foot went out longer. There's a lot of different things that we can set over here. So let's go ahead and close that out. Well, Joel, I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about in regards to the tour around HumanIK.
Yeah, I think you're right.
With the exception of, as mentioned earlier, let's mention it one more time, and that is you can find the ability to create HumanIK yourself from right here, or if we come over here to the Create panel, Systems, up under Kidara, you can find it right here. So with that and the quick tour, that's going to wrap up this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at how we can go in there, take our own skeleton, and define HumanIK for it. So with that, thanks a lot, everyone.